Hello and welcome to part 2. In this video I'm going to be going through a demo of the end result. I'm also going to show you how to install and configure advanced sessions, how to configure for UI with Unreal, and how to make a home page for hosting. Then going through some of the multiplayer code I use to make the balls replicate between each game, and some quick modifications that I made to the player controller to make sure it didn't crash. That'll be it for this video. So without further ado, let's get into the demo. Okay, so for my demo, all I need to do is go into levels, select the main menu level, hit play, and there are some settings that'll go over for how to configure this in the video. So I've already hit host game on my computer, so I'm just gonna hold shift and hit tab. Now that my friends list is open, I'm going to go to the drop down menu and then hit join game. And after a moment, I'll be in the game. So all I did on the other account is hit the host button. And as you can see, I'm moving the other account, and you can see the ball moving in real time. Hello everyone. Welcome to part 2. In part 1, I showed how to download the repository and how to check out part 1. Now that we're in part 2, we need to check out part 2. So let's go into our Unreal project in Git Bash, which was demonstrated how to install in part 0. So if you need to open it, you just go to your Windows bar and type Git Bash. That'll bring it up. I already have it up, so let's go here. I'm going to go into Documents, Unreal Projects, and then the name of my project, which happens to be Ball Tutorial. Then I'm going to, I've already checked it out, but just to show you how, you type git checkout part 2. All right. Now, before we open our Unreal project, let's download advanced sessions. So let me open a browser here. This is something that I've already done, so you don't technically need to do this. This is more for teaching you how to do this if you wanted to incorporate this into one of your own projects. So let's go to Advanced Sessions, Unreal Engine. Should be the first link. Then the one that you'd want to download if you were using the version that I am is 4.21. So let's just click on that. All right, and then we click download. Download anyway. Let's open it up. All right, so this is currently in downloads. So we're going to need to extract all. And let's go ahead and, so this is 2 because I've already downloaded it. So let's just hit extract. Then I'm going to take this folder. You can take the examples if you want, but you really only need this. Then I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go to my tutorial. And then I'm going to back out here. And I'm going into plugins. And then you would just paste here. But I already have it, so this is how you do it if it was for yourself. Now the next step is going to be setting up the engine properly. This has already been done, but again, this is for your own information. So let's type in here. Let me just copy this link. I'll post this link in the description. Then I'm just going to Control F for end result. Then you come down here and take this. It tells you to put it in your default engine.ini. So you just copy this. Then you go here. Sorry, here. And then you would go to config and default engine.ini. and you would just paste the content right here, like so. Okay, so that's how you set up advanced sessions. With all of that set up, you should be able to run your game and see Steam pop up in the bottom right. One last thing that we'll need to open our project for to make that the case is enabling the plugin. So let's do that now. So let's go to our tutorial here. All right. So we're going to need to generate Visual Studio project files if you've just checked out this repository. I've already done it, so it'll go pretty quickly. Then let's open it up. Then you simply go to Edit, Plugins. Then scroll down to the bottom. You should see Advanced Sessions Plugins, and just make sure that these two are enabled. I've already enabled them in mine. Let's close out of this. So if we hit play, one other thing you'll need to configure is going all the way down to the bottom here. You're going to want to make sure that this is in play offline. Even if use single process is checked, you also need to make sure that this is in play offline. So, and then you'll want to check use single process. Then if I hit X here, I should be able to run this. And voila, we see Steam in the bottom right. If you're having issues getting that to come up, it might be because you're not logged into Steam, so make sure you do that first. All right, now the only other thing that we need to edit, and this can be done preemptively, but it's already been done, but again, this is, if you're going to be adding widgets, which we do for our menu, you're going to need to go into Source, and then our build.cs. I've already put it here. This application core was something that I thought was going to fix an issue, but didn't end up doing it, so you can ignore that. This UMG, though, is needed for widgets, so you would add this if you had a fresh project instead of cloning the one that I've been working from. Okay, so let's take a look at the first thing that we need to add. We need a menu, somewhere that when people join, they can host, and somewhere that people can join from. So let's take a look at our menu level we've created. And uh-oh, we don't see anything. Well, that's because all the content is contained in our game mode. So the game mode chooses a HUD, and most importantly, it chooses this menu controller. This HUD is the default HUD. This menu controller, however, creates a widget and allows us to control it. So let's take a look at that code. So this is going to be under Blueprints, menu controller, controllers. So this is a C++ tutorial. Why do I have my logic in Blueprints? Well, C++ is good for some things. Blueprints are good for other things. This is one case in which it really seemed that, as far as the documentation was concerned, blueprints are the best way to do this. It's also not something that's ever going to be done, 100 times in a minute. This isn't something that needs to be high performance. So best to just keep it easy. So this controller just creates the widget, which I'll show in a moment, adds it to the viewport, sets the input mode so that you don't have to click to focus on the window and then click again to start. Then it also shows your mouse cursor so that you have something to click with. All right, let's close out of that. Now let's show our widget in our user interface. So all I did to do make this was dragged out a button, and dragged out a text box on top of it, set the words to host game. Then on the graph, I did onClicked, which had to be added from the button. You scroll down all the way to the bottom, you just click add and it adds it to the graph. OnClicked. Then I got the owning player, casted it to the controller, and then from that I create the advanced session. So this is from the advanced sessions plugin. Now, then this is the name of the level that you want to open, and you have to have this question mark listen for it to be a listen server. So this is something I play with my friends. I don't need to have some server out there running all the time. Whenever I start up my game, I'm the server and a player, and then whoever else joins is just a player. You don't have to change any of these. I changed private connections to 100. No big. Doesn't really matter. So this should be all you need here. However, you are going to need one thing in the game instance. So let's take a look at that. This is what allows you to join a game as a player that wants to get in. So when the invite is successful, we join the session and we set our player controller. So that's all you need there. Now, you may be running into a bug where it doesn't join properly or whatever, and that's because you need to go and set your game instance. So let's do that now. Again, this has already been done for this project, but for those following along and trying to incorporate the concepts into their own works, this is how you would do this. Right. So don't accidentally do advanced friends game instance. That's a mistake I made and took a little bit of time, or just regular game instance. Do the one that you've created and add that join session code to. Oh, another item is I set my game default map to be main menu so that people can see host rather than just jumping into the game and not having a way to get to the main menu. And then I have this as the racing, because you want to be able to, first thing you want to see is the part that you're going to edit. You're not as likely to edit the menu as you are to edit the main game. That's why I have that open on the editor. All right, let's open our C++ code now. So let's click this little folder down here and then go to C++ classes, ball tutorial, and rolling ball. All right, let's take a look at our multiplayer code changes from part 1. So almost everything here is going to be the same, except these multiplayer settings here. So we've set replicates to false and replicate movement to false because we're using physics and we're directly setting the location on the server and on the clients. So we're handling the replication and the movement. That's why we're setting both of those to false, and we're setting this to true to make sure that our location information is always relevant and will properly be sent to the server. Moving down a little bit, you can see that I've set the collision to false. This is because collision between player-controlled objects with lag is a very difficult issue that you can look into further if you need to, but we still have collision with objects in the world, and you can make some dynamic objects that possibly reflect between clients and players, but player-on-player physics collisions are very hard to do unless you have enough money like Rocket League and a pretty specific scenario and very low lag. Moving on, we see what we do in our tick section. So this is saying that if you're the server, tell the clients where your content, where your rolling ball is. If you're a client and the rolling ball is the one that you're controlling, tell the server that rolling ball's location. So this in effect tells all the clients the location of all the rolling balls and the server the location of the rolling balls. The reason is that we're telling all the clients the location of the rolling balls here, and we're telling the server the location. So your content will go up to the server, then from the server it will go up to other players. This is so that we don't run on the fake pawns that we have on the server. We don't run the actual physics code and slow things down. Now you'll notice this server set position and client set position. We implement those here. And you'll notice this validate and implementation. This is because Unreal typically works with server authoritative. In this case, we're doing client authoritative by having the client control the physics and then telling the server the locations of things. So that's why we just simply return true and pass the check. This isn't an option, unfortunately. You can't choose not to do this. You can talk to Unreal if you have a problem with that. It's not something I have any control over. The implementation function is what actually happens when you call the function. And note that we don't call implementation directly. We call the name of the function without the implementation. And the header makes this a little bit clearer. So let's take a look at that. You can see we have our main function, and then we have the validation and the implementation. So this keyword says call this on the server. If you're a client, run this code on the instance that exists on the server. Unreliable is because we don't care if we miss a couple of locations. It'll be a little bit of lag, but it's not something important like spawning. That if it spawns on the client but it doesn't spawn on the server, you're going to have big issues, or vice versa. If something spawns on the server but doesn't spawn on the client, you want that type of thing to be reliable. But simple little updates where you can drop a few and it's fine, that's what you want to be unreliable. With validation is kind of a reminder that Unreal will force you to use validation for RPCs. Unfortunately, there's no without validation. Next, we have the client. Net multicast says, from the server, tell all the clients this. Call this on all the clients. And again, it's unreliable and with validation. And then it's a pretty simple function. Just set the actor position on the server. If you're a client, this is the one you'd call from clients. And then on the server, this is simply called from the server on the clients. So you don't want to set the position of the person who's actually controlling, because that would cause jitter and just lots of annoyance. What you want to do is you want to set the pawns that are not controlled by the player so that that player can see the other people that they're playing with. That's what this is not locally controlled is there for. One other modification I had to make to prior code was to Playercontroller. So let me put that up. I added this if pawn because I was having issues where I would spawn and then I would try to move before the actor had actually fully spawned. So that's what this is here for, just so that we don't get a crash sometimes. That about wraps up the changes that were needed for multiplayer. And that wraps up part 2.